Okay. There we go. Got ourselves a clock. Now we just gotta wait for this thing. Any minute now. There we go. Okay, and then we just gotta wait for that. Okay. This and the chat. All right. And I think we got everything going. There we go. Ow. Good morning. Good evening, good afternoon, depending where you're at. I just poked myself with something underneath this table and the knee. Hope you're having a good Sunday or Monday, depending on where you're at. I see we've got people here from Colorado, Kuala Lumpur, Qatar, Massachusetts, Missouri, Tokyo, Manchester, Hudson, Illinois, Temple, Texas. Good morning from Temple, Texas. Trying to get a little work done this morning. Well, that's always the plan, isn't it? Let's see here. Grove City, Calgary, Switzerland. Calgary and Switzerland are two different things. Miami, Florida. That's one thing. Canton. We got Brisbane, Joliet. Greetings from Poland. Winnicott, South Australia. Newcastle, the one in Australia. We've got Fredericksburg, got Ireland, Munich, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Ohio, got Columbus, Worcestershire. I bought some of your sauce yesterday. It's for Bloody Marys. Let's see here. Shenandoah. We've got Michael Strange is now on a quest to find my Activision Pitfall badge. Thanks for the flashback. You're welcome. That was a recent. Was that last Sunday stream or was that the last Irregulars Live? I think it might have been the Irregulars Live. I'm not sure. Moscow, Singapore, Copenhagen, Dusseldorf, Newfoundland. We've got Quebec, Frederick, Maryland. Any tips on chimp care? No, I don't have a chimp. I know they're very strong, so don't make them angry, I guess. Using your schedule for releasing videos really made my channel take off. Well, that's good. That's good to hear, yeah. I mean, consistency is key. You have to stick to the numbers as much as possible. Stick to the dates and times. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. We've got Liverpool. We've got Namibia. Cool. Nashville. Good afternoon from a very pleasant and sunny Belfast. Yeah, yesterday was gorgeous here. I got a bit of a sunburn on the back of my neck because I was outside doing stuff for a while. Yeah, so Aaron says, are you excited for hopefully less soup in 40K? I like soup. I mean, I like soup. You know, my wife just made some French onion soup that was lovely. But I personally prefer playing, like, at least in Age of Sigmar. I love being like, look, this is my Chaos Army, and there are Beastmen, and there are Nurgle dudes, and there are anybody else who's got the Chaos keyword. But then again, I don't play competitively, so there's that. But it does sound like they're going to get rid of soup, I guess, in 40K, which means that everybody's got to be exactly the same in your army, which is boring, my opinion. But it probably makes more sense in the competitive scene. But I don't know actually that much about what their plans for soup are, other than I've heard that there's a potential for less of it. Again, French onion is pretty good. I've tried cleaning it in petrol, and it smells like we don't. There's no. I don't have any. What do you call them? Chimp stuff. I don't. That's not my thing. Let's see here. We've got Belgium. We've got Fontaine Blue. That sounds fun. John Ashley Smith says, I like Chaos Soup for Age of Sigmar. Yeah, same here. Brian says, watch the last video. Any chance Kill Team activation will just get rolled into 9th? Ugh, man, your words to... Yeah, I wish so. I doubt it highly. People in the kind of competitive fantasy scene, when Age of Sigmar came out, got real angry about rolling for basically initiative every turn. And I know a lot of people for a long time who were just refused to do it. They would do it at the beginning at turn 1 and then just keep that same all the way through, like that it had always been. I think getting that nut cracked in the 40k universe will be a lot tougher, but we'll see. Have you seen the leak of the new Primaris Judicar? I have seen pictures. I don't remember. Was it a leak or was it official? I don't know. Or are you talking about the rules? I've seen the picture of the guy, but if you're talking about the rules, it's a different story. Has an ability that buffs against Firstborn Space Marines called Purge the Firstborn. Yeah, that I haven't seen. I've heard that we're gonna, like, there's a new, so you've got, like, you know, the regular tactical Marines, and then you got the new Primaris Marines, and now there's going to be a new Primaris that's called Primaris Supreme, and they're going to be filled with sour cream, I think. I think that's what you do with Primaris Supreme. So yeah, try fielding an entire army of these guys. That's going to be tough. Like, think about the Rhino that this guy would have to go into. Like, it would only be about this big, because the Rhinos are always not properly proportioned, but still, you know, like, yeah, just an entire table full of these guys. This is the Bandai, what do you call it, kind of action figure thing that just came out recently, and it was within arm's reach, and I think Primaris Supreme is funny if you've ever been to Taco Bell, at least to me. Anyway, let's see here. What else have we got? Did you ever play Inquisitor? I haven't played Inquisitor, but I own the book. I haven't owned it for very long. I just got it like a year ago. So yeah. Let's see here. Atomic Dracula says, morning, Uncle Adam. Well, good morning to you as well. Let's see here. Soup is great for sampling the stuff you like, not about what's powerful or even good. Yeah, no, I agree. I like just building a weird army sometimes, and especially in Age of Sigmar, and that's what I'm a big fan of. So, yeah. Yeah, let's see here. It's funny, I have my players in my weekly D&D game roll for initiative each round to simulate more realistic combat. They still complain after 2 years of it that way. See, I like games where there's a little bit more randomness in that, because things happen in battles. It's not always like, well, you get to go first, and then this guy gets to go, and it's always like that for the entire, you know, I go, you go, I go. That's not how it kind of works. I like, there's a great game called Song of Blades and Heroes by Ganesha Games. And it's basically when it's your turn, you get to activate each of your models, and it's more of a skirmish game, and it's a dice rolling, and you roll 3 dice, or 2 dice, or 1 die. If you roll 2 dice at once that are failures to activate, let's say your quality is 4+, which means that if you don't get a 4+, and if you fail that on 2 dice, then your turn ends. Well, if you only roll 1 die to try to activate this guy, it is impossible for you to roll 2 dice as failures on 1 die. So then, you know, maybe you'll get to move him, or maybe you'll get to attack, but maybe you won't. But at least you'll get to go on to your next guy. If you push it and decide, well, I'm going to roll 2 dice so I can get 2 activations, you might fail both. And if you roll all 3 because you really want to try to get 3 activations, yeah, you have a better chance of failing at least 2. So you've got that kind of thing. And it's different because it's like my turn and I run through my guys and it's your turn. But my turn could end at any point if I push my luck. So different kind of interesting, weird activation styles. I love Bolt Action's activation, where you reach into the little bag and then pull out, you know, the dice. I think that's really cool too. So anyway, maybe they will keep as Tomas. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing that probably. They should keep narrative soup. Maybe this new Crusade mode will be a lot more soup oriented. I'm saying soup a lot already in this episode, which is interesting. Ryan Brooks says, if you're playing with friends, you can always have all the soup you want. That's true. And you can play for a while with a bunch of soup armies, and you can take a break. You can have some soup, and then you go back to playing. That's fine as well. David says, I really like the dice bag mechanic. Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of that with bolt action. I've played years ago in 6th or 7th edition. I played a couple of games just doing that, where we just were like, let's just try it with that activation and just use the bolt action activation. And it was really, I think, a lot of fun. It was much more interesting. So, Tony Tiger asks, does anyone think the new 9th edition starter will have a digital book only? No, I do not think that. That's, excuse me, that is not Games Workshop's jam. I'm glad to hear that they're making it so now if you buy the codex, you get a code and that'll work in the new 40K app. That's a super great step in the right direction. I'm super excited about that. So yeah, definitely going to be interesting. Zingbo says, the kill team method of allowing both sides to act in each phase with each player taking turn to activate units in most phases seems a lot more fun to me than the 40K way of doing it. Same here. It's one of the reasons why I'm playing kill team and really not playing 40K. I like the activation scheme a lot better. So that's a big deal, at least for me. Did you play the tabletop game Warzone, either in the 90s or last decade? No. I've seen the models. I may own some of the old models, but I've not played it. Space Skaven. Now you've put that idea in my head, says Zach Walker. The Mantic games that are sci-fi based have Space Skaven. They're called the Veermin, which is like a play on words for vermin. Yeah, so if you're looking for Space Skaven, you can always look at Mantic. They make some cool models for that line. Grimlock Steve asks, Uncle Adam, have you ever had any issues with game mats being blurry or whatnot? No. They're generally digitally printed these days, so I mean, it would be some sort of goof up, I guess, probably on their part if it's blurry. It shouldn't be. I mean, I guess it depends on what blurry means in your mind, but yeah, no, I haven't had that issue. Let's see. John Ashley Smith says, I am sad to say I have yet to play a game of 8th. This always happens to me. I've got a friend who has been building a Blood Angels army since 5th edition and has yet to play a game. And now we're going into 9th. It's not his primary hobby, I'm not going to lie. But he has been working on and off on that army for a very long time. Let's see here. Yes, VJ Morph, Veermin. Those are the guys. Hey, Uncle Adam, do you think that there will be cheaper starter sets for 9th, like First Strike and No Fear in 8th edition? Also, Space Skaven sound awesome. Or Space Shaven. Either way. Shaven, Skaven. Anyway, do I think that they're going to have the cheap boxes? Yeah, because they do focus on, I mean, as a business unit, they are very focused still on finding easy ways to get people into the hobby, like I've said. That's what's turned the company around in the last 5-6 years. They used to focus only on the people who were already playing for the most part, and just assumed that if someone was going to join in on their reindeer games, that they were willing to shell out $500 to $700 to $800 to get an army put together and all that stuff and built and blah blah blah. And the new leadership was like, wait, what we should do is make it easy for people to get in, not hard. And right, so that's what they've been doing. So I suspect that like First Strike and No Fear will either just be slightly updated with the new rules, or they may not even bother, and just because the rules in there are they're not, I mean, they're kind of 8th edition, but they're like they're like simplistic. They might just start throwing in the new core rules like pamphlet, all that kind of stuff. We'll see how that goes, but yeah. Paul Burton asks, are kill team rules for Adeptus the ladies, the Sisters of Battle, available? Yes, they are available in a white dwarf, though I don't remember exactly which one, or if you buy the most recent Kill Team Annual, the 2019, they're in there as well. So there's that. Joel says, glad to finally catch us live. Well, we're glad to have you. VJ Morph says, Shaven Skaven. Now, there's my new Blitz Bowl team. That's going to take a lot of sanding and filing, but it'll be funny. Any word on the normal Marines in this edition? They're still going to be there, from what I understand. I mean, that's what... in the Friday video I did, I talked about a secret FAQ that was put up and then taken down right away and hidden and all that. And then when I got home from filming, I realized that I had done a bad Google search and I had found... Anyway, so that document is not secret. It's just on the table. It's on the Warhammer community website. And I wrote it on the screen, but there were still plenty of people in the comments who were like, oh, no, you can get that link here. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I put on the screen that I made a mistake and that the link was in the description, which it was. So if you go to Friday's video, you go to the link in the description, you can find the link to that, what do you call it, FAQ? No, actually, it's a Q&A. I was going to show it to you, and then I pushed the wrong button. There. Excuse me, there we go. All right, so... Can I still use my army? Your current army will still be usable in the new edition of 40k. Of course, as we mentioned above, there are loads of cool changes to the rules, so a whole new raft of new tactical challenges and opportunities await. So, yeah, from what it sounds like, we're going to be fine with the old Marines and all that kind of stuff. It's people who are relatively new, I think. What am I doing? I'm having a hard time over here. Okay. People who are relatively new to the game are probably thinking, like it happened in 8th edition, they're like, well, now I have to get those indexes are going to have to come out, and my codexes are going to be... But that's not the way that it's always been, mostly. Like, from 5th through 6th through 7th, all of those times when a new book would come out, you would just have... hang on, I got to... Just a... Curly... This is Margot. She's decided to jump up on a table, which I don't want her to do, so I'm going to put her down there. Okay, you stay down there. Anyway, the codexes are going to stay the same. So your codex that you have now will be good once 9th comes out. They also touched on that stuff as well. Stefan says, I'm actually shaving while listening to this. Are you a Skaven? That's, I guess, the more important question. Let's see here. Jason Tick says that the new Marines are on that Primaris shield in the animated trailer thing. I've heard that before. That's potentially true. Girl, come here. Get. She gets an idea in her head and she wants to be on the table, and I don't have the ability to chase her around right now, so she's just going to sit up here. Unless she goes behind the computer, then I'm going to have to stop her. Hey, Emily, how you doing? Jonathan says, I need to paint my Hero Quest stuff as well. What are you doing? Get your... Margot, come here. Carefully. There we go. Good girl. Now stay down off the table. All right. Let's see here. I went out and bought a codex, and when I got home, found out there was a new edition. Very glad to hear it isn't suddenly worthless. Yeah, no, it's not. They've mentioned several times that that's not going to be the case. And so... let's see here. Mike G says morning all painting Star Saga scenery today. Oh, fun. Let's see. No, you stay down here. I have to reconfigure things to try to keep her from getting up here. She's going to land on my coffee next. Very soon, I'm going to be in the basement with all of this. So, then I won't have to worry about kitties because they don't go in the basement because we keep the door closed. So, I know that some people like cats more than they like 40K. I get that, Moderator Matt. I just don't want her up on the dining room table. Like, if there was nothing up here, it would be fine. It'd be fine if she would just, like, hunker down right there and sleep, but she wants to always go behind the computer. I don't know why. And then I'm always concerned she's going to wreck something. Or get electrocuted, which would be wrecking her, wouldn't it? Yes. Don't do that. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can get this back on track. All right. Do you think the ninth edition will be a July release or October or later? Well, it's interesting because they said in the document that I was just looking at there, and if you go find that document, you'll find it in there. It says that it's a few weeks away. Now, a few is hard to determine. Like, what does that mean? What's a few? You know, but if I had to guess, I would say it's maybe going to come out July-ish. I don't know. It's interesting because normally we could kind of plan on this stuff a little bit better because we would know with Gen Con, the convention season, all that kind of stuff, we would be able to kind of judge and engage on that. And also just general shipping and all that kind of stuff. But because everything is so messed up due to the pandemic, I don't know. I got to be honest, I'm a little surprised in general that they are coming out with 9th edition now. Two reasons. Number one, personally for me, I do feel like it's maybe a year too early. Like it's only been, I think, 3 years since the launch of 8th. And a lot of people are also saying that this is really not 9th, it's really more of an 8.5. I don't know that for sure. We won't really know until we actually read the rules and such. But yeah, so, you know, and again, it's even a situation of people just like, well, if they don't completely tear it all down and build it from scratch, then is it really a new edition? Well, if that's the case, they've barely done that in the last 30 years. You know, the changes between editions are, like, between 7th and 8th was, kind of, not extreme, but it was definitely a bigger change than, say, between 5th and 6th or 6th and 7th. Anyway, in my opinion, it's maybe a touch early. Also, I don't know if during a pandemic is the best time to release a game. That they may not have control over. I mean, certainly they don't have control over the pandemic, obviously. But it might have been a situation where they're like, they were planning this, obviously, for several years or whatever, and then they were like, oh, crap, you know. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because I've got store owner friends who are like, I don't know how I'm going to teach people how to play this game and try to get people to buy it when people have to come into my store, you know, only max 5 people and I can't have events here and all that kind of stuff. So, and who's going to be playing? People will buy new models because they want to put them in their army and they'll be thinking about their armies for the future. But yeah, so anyway, it's different. Torch says, I'm training a kitten currently. I pull her off my desk 40 times an hour. That's a lot. Luckily, Margot has decided to go look out the window, which I appreciate. Mike G asks, is Nick allowed in the basement? I mean, technically, yes, with supervision. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, when I do move into the basement, I'm going to probably have a Nick cam. So I can cut to Nick and we can make sure that everything's okay with Nick. So there. Margot is providing motivation for perfecting Adam's Basement of Solitude. Honestly, it's been partially the pandemic. It's also been partially because I want to start doing more streaming. I've been streaming kind of on Twitch through straight through the PlayStation 4. I've been taking these little paint breaks sometimes at night. Took one on Friday, and I've been just basically playing GTA 5 and running around and having fun and chatting with people in the chat a little bit. And probably going to do it again maybe today or tonight, one of the two. And then coming out very soon, I'm going to be doing Friday morning hobby streams. And they'll be pretty much every Friday morning coming soon. So look forward to that. I've got most of the equipment I need at this point, and now it's just getting things set up in the basement and going from there. And it's close. It's quite close. I've been doing a lot of progress with the help of my wife on the basement recently, and that's been really good. So it's been, at least something's been good. It's been coming out of this whole thing. Such as it is. But yeah, so if you're interested, definitely go on to Twitch and follow me there. It's Tabletop Minions on Twitch, obviously. But yeah, it's fun. I've been enjoying the streaming and stuff, and it's interesting. Like, it's a whole new thing for me to learn as far as the technology between, all that kind of stuff and whatnot. Like, these little things here on the screen are kind of baby steps, like the little view counter thing over there and that little shirt ad that pops up over there sometimes. But I'm gonna, I'm doing more than that. So if you're interested, go take a look. And if you're a Twitch viewer, go follow me on Twitch. And I'll make a graphic eventually to put on the screen, but not today. Let's see here. We got Margot. Now we need a Diesel appearance. Diesel is cashed out. He is sleeping somewhere. So, where's the fez? The fez that I was wearing in Friday's video is at the studio. That's the current studio fez. I figured since I just got out of the shower, the hair is relatively ruly currently, but it is, I'm hoping to get a haircut soon. I have other fezzes, but I didn't think of grabbing one right away. Do you think the new edition will be more focused on Xenos in both books and models? Not particularly. Games Workshop has a tendency to focus on the Imperium stuff for two reasons, I think. Number one, it's what sells. More people are interested in buying Space Marines than are buying other stuff. It's just they know if all of a sudden Tau was the big seller by a super huge margin, then they would probably shift the narrative quite a bit. So there's that. Secondly, part of the reason that I think that Space Marines in general and Imperium sell is because the players themselves can see themselves in those characters, see themselves in those. Like when you look at, I don't know, Necrons, you're not just like, hey, that's just like Uncle Dave. No, you don't get that, you know what I mean? Like you don't have that connection as much. Your average person has more connection with human characters in a movie or a game. Like every once in a while you come across like games, whether it's maybe a role-playing game or it's a, like a miniature game or like that, where nothing in the game is anything even vaguely human related. And I always look at those games and I always wonder how well they're going to do. Like, I can't think of, let's see if anybody in the chat can, I can't think of a game system that is super popular, sales-wise, whatever, that doesn't have humans in it. And because a lot of people, even myself included to some degree, just identify more with humans than I do with weird communist fish cow people. That's the Tau. Even though the Tau were my first army. The Tau were my first army because I figured they'd be really easy to paint, which they were, as it turned out, at least the way I did it. So, Hans just says the GW needs to start shouting Tau for sale. I mean, they had Sam over there. They had him over there just before. When did they have him over there? Beginning of 2019. They flew him over for the big, so he and a bunch of other painters could check out the contrast paint. They could have just recorded something while he was there. I mean, they did, but they could have recorded a Tau for sale thing. Then that would have made Tau sell better. So yeah, I really hope that Kill Team. That's true, Emily. That it does depend on your Uncle Dave. If he is a robot skeleton, then you'd be like, oh yeah, that's Uncle Dave right there. I really hope the Kill Team will maintain its characteristics and flavor with the upcoming 9th edition. That game is awesome. I like it a lot too. And like I said, I don't know. I'm a little nervous. The upside to some degree is that if they decide to make a new edition of Kill Team 2.0 or whatever, it's not like you're going to have to go out and buy all new codexes. You know what I mean? Like, or anything along those lines. It'll just be like, here's a new book, and it's got everything in it, kind of. And you're like, okay, cool. And as long as they make it work relatively well enough with elites, commanders, arena, stuff like that, then it shouldn't be a huge deal. Again, like any other tabletop game, you and your friends could just choose not to play it. So, Carlos asks, what's the Twitch channel? It's Tabletop Minions, all one word. So that would be twitch.tv/Tabletop Minions. Tower goats, not fish, but they have a gill, like here, I think. I don't know. And I think that they're kind of communist. I don't know. That's all for about the greater good. Anyway. That's what we've always referred to them as kami fish cows? Kami cow fishes? It's something like that. When I had the Tau army, that's what my friends used to call mine, as it turned out. Let's see here. Ben asks, there was a MMO game that came out years ago that looked interesting. I can't remember the name, sadly, and had no humans in it at all, just weird aliens. It didn't do super well, did it? Or if it did, we would have potentially remembered it. I just, seems to be the case. I don't know. Cyclone says, I can see myself in Eldari. Wear a lot of pointy hats, I'm assuming. Wanting to scour the maiden worlds clean of Monkey. Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Are Stormcast Eternals human? I mean, they're human-ish. Sorta. I thought they were made of lightning. I mean, they are now. But they were humans that then got turned into lightning? I don't know exactly how that works. Paul Noble says, less babyface Nurgle stuff would be great. Here. I really love Nurgle, like a lot of the Nurgle stuff, but I don't like Nurglings. Like, every time that there's like a little fat, chubby, happy Nurgling dancing around and stuff like that, I just picked up I ordered from GW because it's a online only kit now, and it's called the Pusgoyle Blightlords, I think. It's like two big flying Nurgle bugs with like dudes riding on them. And I'm going to use them for Warcry, because that's in the Blight King army. There's basically, you can use the Putrid Blight Kings and the Pusgoyle Blight Lords, and that's it. That's the only two units that are in that army. So I'm going to do that because it's fun, and I've always wanted to paint those big flying bugs. But they come with like little Nurgling dudes hanging off of them and smiling and dancing and farting and whatever, and I'm not going to add them on. I'm going to leave those and just, I don't know, put them someplace else. Anyway, yeah, so, like I said, just not my jam, so not going to do that. If you're into them, that's cool. I'm glad that I can decide not to put them in that part of the army, which I think I like. I love, like, the Blight Lords and the Blight Kings and the Blight Queens, I guess. I don't know, all the Blight things, like all those big, huge, like the great armor and the antlers for whatever reason and all that kind of stuff. Totally into that. Great looking sculpts. Nurglings I'm not into. So, how do you feel about the new AdMech? I liked the AdMech a lot. These new flyers, I feel as if, in my personal aesthetic, they've kind of stepped over the line. Like the weird sort of almost like steampunk, bat-winged airplane, and that's just not my jam. Like everything else they've done up to that point, I'm like, yeah, those are cool. Like, love the Castellan, like 50s robot dude. Love the Doom crawlers, or Dune crawlers, not Doom, Dune. They crawl across the dunes. All that stuff, all the models, the Rangers, the Vanguards, all that stuff. Even the Electro Priests, I think, are kind of cool. But man, the new flying things in that army are not doing it for me. I like on the new flyer, like the cockpit and the nose of it. It's kind of almost a World War II sort of look, which I think is interesting. If I could just get rid of those wings and put something else better on there, I don't know, like rotors, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, that's just not my jam. But BJ Morph says that fat farting Nurglings is his jam. Different strokes. Exactly, and that's fine. So I'm glad they're making them. I'm not saying don't make those. I'm just saying I'm not going to buy them generally. Or if they come added on to my other cool models, I'm going to leave them off. And I like having that option. GW's official answer on Stormcast being human is that they are all human as far as we know so far. Well, you can see, like, when the Stormcast first came out, there were a lot of people talking about how the armor was empty. Kind of like Thousand Suns. But then you started seeing artwork that they started coming out with where, like, you would see the mask, and then you would see actual eyes behind there, like this. Like, well, this part wasn't there, but you could see the eyes. And that was cool. So you're like, okay, there are actually people in there. But I don't know the fluff that much on Age of Sigmar stuff. I would talk to Vince and Tom over at Warhammer Weekly. They know that stuff inside and out. To the point where, like, when they're having conversations about the fluff, I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I really don't know much of the fluff for Age of Sigmar. Like, at least I understand the fluff better for, like, regular 40K. I've read plenty of the books and things like that, but I've not read any of the books, fluff-wise, Black Library, for Age of Sigmar. Anyway, so, yeah, it's interesting. Da Vinci wings, they step away from the aesthetic. Yeah. First of all, I like the term Da Vinci wings. That's totally on point because that does look like what, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. The new AdMech flyers seem like steampunk dwarves all over again. I don't mind the steampunk dwarves. Either the older steampunk dwarves or the new Caradon overlords. I like both of those. But the yeah, I don't know about those wings. It's not my jam. Let's see here. I like the guys riding mechanical dogs, though. Yeah, those mechanical dog horse things are kind of cool. I'll give you that. I mean, it's... I don't know why you would go that direction. Like, in a perfect world, well, if you're going to design a vehicle that goes quickly, in my mind, if you have all of the technology available, I don't know why you wouldn't make hover tanks or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that not everyone is just running around in hover tanks all the time seems strange to me. I mean, you got the repulsor tanks now, obviously, from, for the Primaris. Eldar have been using hover tanks forever, but they've been around for a long time and they're evidently super wicked smart. So that's cool. It's odd, and there is a hover tank now for the AdMech, but like, yeah, like a mechanical dog horse, that's a odd choice, kind of. How about a hovering mechanical dog horse, or just a hovering motorcycle? The fact that Primaris are still driving around in regular motorcycle. Don't even get me started on motorcycles in general in 40K. They seem silly to me. I have been in hand-to-hand combat with too many motorcycles at playing 40K, not in real life, and just been like, how is this? What is going on? How am I fighting a guy on a motorcycle? That doesn't make any sense. I understand getting from place to place on a motorcycle in some sort of war zone. I get it, sure. But then when you get there, you get off the motorcycle. Like, I never see bikers fight each other on motorcycles. They generally get off the motorcycles and then they get a chain or, like, a couple of pool balls that they put in a tube sock, and then they get into a fight, and that's fine. But you don't do it on the motorcycle because everybody would just be constantly trying to not fall over because those motorcycles are tippy. It turns out they have the two wheels. So, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Let's see here. I like the Greyhounds, but not enough to buy a whole faction for them. Yeah, and that's sometimes the issue as well. Like, one of the reasons I love Kill Team, as I've mentioned time and time again, is because I can grab a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But if you're like, I really like that vehicle, well, you're not going to use that in Kill Team. And I get people all the time who are like, I really like Kill Team if they would bring vehicles into it. And I always say, that game is called 40K. And now, in theory, if you can start playing like a combat patrol size game at 500 points, I suspect you'll be able to bring in some sort of vehicles. Like Kill Team back in the day, Combat Patrol back in the day when I first started playing, you could have a vehicle as long as, and this is back when the armor was way different, like each side had an armor value. So the front and the back the sides were always the same, but the front and the back could be different. So if you took like the front, the back, and one of the sides, and you added up the armor value on all three of those, it had to be 33 or less, and then you could bring that vehicle in. So you couldn't bring in a Land Raider because they had like 16 or 15 in the front, so that wasn't going to work. A Rhino was usually 11 in the front, 11 on the side, and 10 in the rear, I think. And so you had those options. So you could bring a Rhino. I think you could even bring maybe a Razorback. And there were other vehicles, obviously, here, depending on the army. But yeah, it was like I couldn't bring a Razorback because I was playing Chaos by that point, and we didn't have Razorbacks. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that kind of happens and how they make those rules happen, or if it's just going to be it's 500 points, bring what you bring. You know what I mean? That could be very unbalanced potentially. That's part of the reason why in the old Kill Team rules, you had these specific parameters on how to play, because otherwise there were certain armies that were just like, oh, for 500 points, I can bring this and crush all y'all. Whereas other armies were like, I don't have anything cool until I get to 1,000 points. You know what I mean? So, definitely, yeah. Alan says, now I want Road Rash, the video game, but set in the 41st millennium. Well, that'd be sort of cool. Like, if you were riding a motorcycle and you had your sword out and you were, like, jousting, great. But to sit there and be like, I'm now locked in combat with these guys, and these guys are on foot and have axes, and I am on a motorcycle and trying not to fall over, it just seems wackadoo. It's a technical term. Does Deathwatch have Primaris? Looking to get into 40k, and those dudes are pretty badass. I think so. Definitely in Kill Team, you can use Primaris models and make them Deathwatch. That is listed in there. I don't know 100% about 40k 8th edition. Someone else in the chat will probably know better than I. But I do know you can do it in Kill Team. I think hover jet bikes would have been better than the ones with the wheels. See, yeah, there was a lot of talk about how the new motorcycles for Primaris were going to come out and they were going to be hover bikes, and then not only were they not hover bikes, but they were motorcycles that had literally no ground clearance. Like trying to go into the convenience store and go up the apron, into the parking lot, those bikes would bottom out. So those Primaris guys would have to park in the street to go in and get slushies. It's sad, but they should probably look at trying to raise the ground clearance a little bit on their motorcycles. Nox Starfox says, I'm very interested in the 500-point patrol games that they mentioned. I think it's going to be interesting, definitely. I'm very interested to check it out. Whether I will play them or not, I don't know, but I'm glad that they're focusing on that end of the number spectrum for, you get your 500-point games versus your 2,500-point games or whatever. So, yeah. Chimera was the top dog tank-wise in the old Combat Patrol. Oh, yes, I know. I fought against many a Chimera. They were fun. Multi-lasers and all that. Let's see here. When I like a vehicle, I buy it and magnetize the crew, so when I play Kill Team, I can use them as scenery. That's not a bad idea. Yeah, I've got some old rhinos that I still just bought weird randomly at swap meets and eBay and places like that I probably could turn into scenery as well for Kill Team, and I've kicked around the idea of doing such. Yeah. Let's see here. Lehman Rust jousting. That sounds kind of fun. Hey from Russia, fan of Kill Team. Got into it like a month ago. So far, great. Yeah, it is a great game. I enjoy it quite a bit. BJ Morph says that the Gene Stealer Cults bikes are pretty good as they look like proper dirt bikes. Totally. They totally look like a normal motorcycle. I mean, they're probably supposed to be electric, or, well, maybe not electric. They run on Promethium. I don't know. But they do look like a motorcycle where I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Will they bring out Primaris-sized Terminator armor for 9th? I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. I don't... Yeah, I doubt it, but maybe. That's a good question. Andrew asks, Uncle Adam, what do you use to strip models? I use something called LA's Totally Awesome. It is a bright yellow degreaser cleaner stuff that for years I've been telling people, oh, you can just get it at a dollar store. I was at Lowe's, I don't know, like a week ago or whatever, wearing a mask and trying not to touch anything. And noticed as I was looking for the thing I was having to get that I was there for, they sell now big jugs of LA's Totally Awesome, bright yellow, not very expensive. Anyway, LA's Totally Awesome. You can usually, like I said, get it from the dollar store. You get like a 32-ounce bottle for about $1. And I just straight up just drop the models into some sort of container that's got that fluid in there. I did a video series a couple years back about, it's called... Uncle Adam's Miniature Hot Mess, if you want to look that up. And I did a vampire lord guy that I bought on eBay. And first thing to do was to strip off the old paint. And it was using the LA is Totally Awesome, and it worked great. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I like to use. It works really well. It doesn't seem to damage plastic or anything like along those lines. I like it a lot, and it's like I said, you can usually get it at a dollar store, or now I've found it. It's at Lowe's as well. Let's see. Red Crovey says, I'm new to the whole scene. Are the Primaris models a whole different unit in 40k, or are they just different cosmetically? They are a different unit in 40k. Normal tactical marines have 1 wound, which means they've got like 1 hit point. Most things in 40k generally have 1 hit point. Every once in a while, you've got like a special commander or a big monster that might have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, hit points. They're called wounds in 40k. Primaris have 2 wounds, so they are not only physically larger, they're also kind of tougher. It's kind of like that. So yeah, they cost more points, if you're building your army than tactical marines. But tactical marines are still there. But the Primaris marines are like if I saw a space marine not in their space marine armor, but just wearing, I don't know, a tracksuit, whatever they wear when they're not wearing armor, they would be like, generally according to the fluff, about 7 feet tall. And from what I understand, Primaris, in also tracksuits or whatever, not in their armor, would be creeping up on 8 feet tall. So they are even bigger. They make regular space marines look like, littler dudes. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of where that is. For 500-point games, says Hawkeye figure, yes. For 500-point games, if you aren't going first, you have to hide all your models or put them into reserves. I mean, that's kind of the case with 40k in general. It seems as if, like, if you don't get to go first, you better hide, because otherwise you could, depending on the way you set up, could get shot right off the table. That happens, and that's part of the issue of the activation scheme that we're still under, at least in Kill Team, or sorry, 40k. One of the reasons I like Kill Team, because you don't have to worry about that as much, so that's cool. Paul Burton asking for a friend, but do we think that squats will ever make it back into the game? I don't know. Like so many people asked for Sisters of Battle, Plastic Sisters specifically, to the point where it started to become like an in-joke, it seemed, at Games Workshop, and they would sort of tease it a little bit here and there in some of the videos that they started doing, after 8th edition came out. But then they finally were like, oh, by the way, we're going to do Plastic Sisters, and now they've done Plastic Sisters. So, like, there are in-jokes about squats and stuff like that. Like, in the last week on Saturday, when they were talking to Pete Foley, who kind of runs 40K, basically, on the whiteboard behind him, there was something written about, like, things to do, and it said squats. And so, like, they know that people are interested, and Lord knows if people are interested, some people will buy, and I don't know why as a business you wouldn't, but I feel as if they're maybe trying to tease it out a little bit more, and then maybe it'll come back. If you look in the 8th edition main rulebook, squats are mentioned, but like there's like a line drawn through it in the fluff, but if you catch the light right on the page, you can kind of see what some of those things that are under the redacted area actually say. So yeah. How do you clean these makeup brushes for dry brushing? What I do is I just kind of dunk it in water a little bit, and then I go get like a clean piece of paper towel or kitchen roll, I think people call it overseas, and I just basically rub it back and forth for quite a while until it is mostly dry. Like, you'll never get them super duper clean. You'll get them clean to the point where they won't transfer old color onto new thing, especially if you don't immediately then try to use them again. If you let them dry for a while. I mean, being a dry brush, you want to let them dry for a while. If you're doing a lot of like if you got into, let's say, commission painting and had to crank through a lot of stuff quick, I would go buy multiple of every type of like makeup brush that you need so that you can be using this one, and while this one's drying, you can grab another one and go to town. Nonetheless, understand that over time they will eventually fall apart because we're using them for not what they're supposed to be used for. And also they're cheap if you're buying the cheap ones. And so eventually you'll just get new ones. But like you can, lengthen the longevity of how long that they're going to last by, like I said, I just dunk them in water and then just brush them off on a piece of paper towel and just keep doing that for a bit until there's no more paint going on the paper towel, and then I just let it sit someplace and let it air dry. And that's the best way. I've never tried using any kind of like brush cleaner stuff on those brushes. I don't know how well it would work because I don't even know what the heck those brushes are made out of. I'm assuming it's synthetic. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. But yeah, definitely. It's you do want to clean them, but don't try to bring them back to factory spec. You're gonna over time they will get a little bit chunkier, and then you just probably buy another $2 makeup brush at the dollar store, or well, wherever you get them from. Oh yeah, where do I find the 9th edition announcement again? Twitch, probably. Warhammer TV on Twitch. If you want to watch the video there, probably. Otherwise, if you just go to warhammer40000.com, I'm sure they've got stuff there too. Lots of things for you to learn. That's the new website, I guess, that's just for 40K. So there's all kinds of neat stuff there. They got the cool animated trailer, and all that jazz, so that's kind of cool. Eric says, I'm not convinced that anyone unironically wants squats. Well, Sam is actually building squats out of Caradon Overlord. He's been kitbashing them so he can have squats for Kill Team, I think. So I think there are plenty of people that, I would buy squats. I mean, if they were cool modeled, if they were modeled as well as the Caradon Overlords, and they were carrying, I don't know, bolters or whatever it is that the squats would have used, I would totally buy some squats for Kill Team. I would not make a squat army. Some people certainly probably would. The question becomes, obviously, from the business standpoint, will enough people do it to make it worthwhile? But yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they could just release a conversion kit that you could use to kit bash Caradon Overlords into squats. That might be a bad idea. I mean, to be fair, there are basically squats, again, in Mantic's sci-fi game in Warpath. There are the Forge Fathers, which are basically kind of squats. They're space dwarves, which, so you could do that too. Let me see here. Afternoon from Denmark, says Rocker Boy. Good afternoon. Space Marines are Primaris squats. That's a very good point, moderator Matt. I think you nailed that right on the head. Maybe that's how they've done it. They've look, we gave you squats by making everybody else taller. Torch says, I've used brush cleaner on the makeup brushes and it's fine. Well, then that's good to do. I am terrible at brush cleaning in general, so I should get better. The brush cleaner bar soap, that is, says Torch. So, Games and Gears makes a little square brush cleaner bar type soap. There's something called Masterson's? I don't remember. It's a little hockey puck about yay big, little plastic thing. Kind of looks like shoe polish. I mean, it's not black or whatever color. It's yellowish, but it's in a little shoe polishy type container, except it's plastic and smaller than a shoe polish container. But otherwise, it's just like it. Anyway, that one's very popular amongst brush cleaning people, and it's a good idea, especially if you've got expensive brushes. It's probably a good idea to clean them. Again, Vince Venturella over on his YouTube channel recently did a video about brush cleaning, and he's smart, so you should totally pay attention to him. People talking about squats. Squats could have a small codex like Sisters and the Harlequins. I see them as bikers. Well, then we got more bikes again. White Dwarf should release squat kill team rules using Caradon Overlords. Yes, they should. They totally should. Yeah, definitely. Emily says, I'm not sure what squats look like. I basically think they're space dwarves, pretty much. There used to be a space dwarf army called squats, and they were humans who had grown up, I think, on stronger gravity worlds, who had then just gotten shorter and shorter and stockier. And it was a way to make dwarves for sci-fi. And then they did that, and then all of a sudden one day they were just like, yeah, we're gonna pretend that didn't happen. And then they made a joke at some point, I think, about how the Tyranids ate all the squats, and it's been a thing. Uncle Adam, do you think the Retributor chapter from Astartes will make it into 9th edition? So Astartes is the YouTube channel that there's this one person who's been making these animations that are frankly astounding. They're really, really, really super good. And has made their own chapter for, these videos. I don't know. I mean, because those videos are not technically part of Games Workshop. I mean, they're kind of letting him do it, and they're not going to sue him for it because I think they're this is helpful for us. It's gotten them tons of press. I've seen tons of reaction videos and stuff like that. People talking about who have no idea what the heck 40K is, and they watch these videos and go, whoa, and then that gets them zillions of views. It's great. Anyway, Master's brush soap. That's the brush soap we were just talking about, not Masterson's. I don't know if that's the same. Masterson's maybe makes that wet palette. Anyway, so will they make an actual? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess they could just honestly they could use Forge World and just make shoulder pads, and then you could buy those maybe. But they would have to talk to him, and I don't know. There would be licensing. It's hard to say. Will LA's Totally Awesome strip primer? It depends on the primer. It also depends to some degree on the material. Like that vampire guy, the primer came off. He was a metal model though. So, but it might. And again, it depends. Like if someone has used some sort of horrible, not actually primer for primer, like I don't know, like a lacquer spray can or something like that, and they've sprayed it on so thick that it's destroyed, or not destroyed, clogged all the details, then it may not do the job. If it's a metal model, then start looking at something like acetone, which is very dangerous, and you should not drink it or smoke. Well, you shouldn't smoke anyway, but definitely don't smoke near acetone. It's crazy flammable. Or like super high density, whatever, like 99% isopropyl alcohol, that can also help too. But some primers, like if someone just like held a can over the model and just went like for like a minute, then not much you can do about that in those situations, unless it's like maybe acrylic primer. But it's difficult. It's very difficult. People get caught up on the biker aspect. I am all about the miner side. Squat exo armor was described as a form of Terminator armor. That's how squats roll. They're not agile. They're not running around doing a lot of tricks. So yeah, they were miners. Like no one ever in fantasy ever makes dwarves who are acrobats or scholars necessarily, or theater majors. You know what I mean? Like they're always like, we're miners. Sometimes we ride motorcycles. Like that's what they do, and it seems like it's maybe a stereotype. I'm just saying. Cromlech in the UK does Retributor shoulder pads. Well, there you go. See, if you want to go that direction, I like Cromlech stuff. Gary McGregor says a lot of us old hammers still have and play squats. Collect from other companies. Also convert as you suggested. We all would buy. Need good rules though. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, everything needs good rules. Almost nobody ever buys something they get like, yeah, but the rules are terrible. So I'm gonna definitely buy that. But yeah, that's definitely the case out there. Retributors becoming lore would only be a wink from Games Workshop, that they love it. I mean, they should love it. It's a great series of animations. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. Just type in Astartes into YouTube's, and there are 5 videos I think so far. Like the first 4 were all like minute and a half, and then the most recent one that came out was like nearly 6 minutes, and it's pretty spectacular. And from what I understand, it is all being done by like one person, like the whole thing, the whole project, which is why it takes forever, kind of in between episodes. But I think it's a him, is got a Patreon going, and I think is now focusing on it full time, so we might see it going quicker. I was honestly hoping that maybe they had contacted the person who does Astartes to do the trailer that they did for 9th edition, because I honestly think I would have been able to tell to some degree, just like because of the way the animation is in that and the style of it. But it was still a very good animation. I still really liked the new 9th edition trailer thing. You should definitely check that out. Let's see here. I use Rust-Oleum spray paint for priming. Matte colors come off better than satin colors for plastic models. Rust-Oleum goes off easy. Yeah, like I said, normal primers that are designed actually as primers do usually come off relatively simple. And yeah, Rust-Oleum, that kind of stuff, when I've used those, have worked pretty well. It's like someone just like when they just find, no, I found this rattle can in the garage, I'll just use it as primer, and then they spray it on way too hard, and then it sits and no one ever bothers to paint, and then it eventually ends up on eBay or in a swap meet or whatever, and then you end up with this model and you're like, oh, I'll just strip all this stuff off, and then you're like, 3 months later and you're trying to chip it off with a chisel and you still can't get it off. That's the problem. So, Scale 75 makes paint stripper, magical stuff. Can even spot brush it. That's interesting. I didn't know that Scale 75 made the paint stripper. Nox Star Fox says, I have a Forge Fathers starter set from Mantic. Very cool space dwarves. Yeah, they're very cool. I think that was a neat idea, or it was a neat idea to put those in. To I want to say it was the original starter box for when they launched Warpath. I think it was Forge Fathers versus maybe their version of Orcs. I don't remember. Ronan says the trailer is good quality, but it's kind of bland compared to Astartes. I think bland is maybe a strong word, but it is not nearly as stylized as Astartes. That's the thing about the Astartes animations, is they're very stylized in both the lighting, like the color grading and things like that, and I think in the action, like things are kind of slow and then they get really fast and then they get slow, and there's no talking. I mean, not that there was really much in the way of talking in the 9th edition trailer and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, it's interesting to me. It's yeah, I don't know. I really I really like the Astartes stuff. I think it's very well done. John Ashley Smith says, for stripping paint, I've had good results with Easy Off Oven Cleaner. Plastic and metal seems to clean off most paint I've encountered. That's interesting. I've never used Easy Off. Like the spray stuff. It's stuff you spray on the inside of your oven to clean it. I mean, it's a degreaser, which I guess makes sense. But I've not tried any of that. Forge Fathers versus Enforcers was for the 2nd edition Warpath. I swear Forge Fathers were part of the 1st edition, but I can't remember who the other army was. Let's see here. New 40K trailer was done by M2 Animation. They primarily do video game cutscene cinematics. I mean, it kind of showed, in a good way. I mean, that was well done. I would say it is, in my opinion, right up there with the original cinematic to Dawn of War, the first one. Like that original cinematic to Dawn of War, with the orcs that come over the hill and all that stuff, and then the dreadnought comes in there and all that jazz. Like that is still, to me, I still watch that sometimes to this day, like on YouTube. It's spectacular. It was so well done. I would easily watch a 90-minute movie of that. I would also easily watch a 90-minute movie of Astartes. Heck, I'd watch a 90-minute movie of the 9th edition trailer. That's fine. I would not watch a movie of the Space Marine movie, though, or the Ultramarine movie. Ultramarine. A friend of mine bought that, and we watched it over at his house, and then we were sad. It was not good, which is a bummer because it had like some decent voice talent in it, but it is not great. VJ Morph says that GW hinted at a new faction and a serious lore evolution tied into the conclusion of Blackstone Fortress. Well, there was a rumor going around that not the drones, I don't know, there was something that was going to come out of Blackstone Fortress, but like I would be amazed if they brought an entire new army with a codex and the whole shebang out of Blackstone Fortress. I guess maybe, but it would be interesting. I mean, it would be interesting, but I would be sort of surprised. But yeah, it's potential. The sisters looked better than the Marines in the new trailer. The Marine animation was maybe not quite as good. To be fair, the Marines, when you look at that armor, it should be really hard to move in. And because the armor on the sisters is lighter and thinner, well, at least lighter probably, or I don't know, whatever. It's smaller, it's probably easier to be a little bit more agile. Whereas, like, Primaris should be pretty bulky. And then you get to Terminators and they should be, like, basically able to kind of move forward, turn, sort of move. I mean, like, if you were to see a Terminator, they should not look like they have any kind of agility at all. They're basically just going to, like, kind of clunk forward and then shoot a gun, maybe wave a sword around. Maybe punch somebody if they get close enough. But like, I was always surprised by the concept of close combat Terminators, because my thought was always just like, it would not be hard to get away from them, because they don't like, I don't know, that I'm sure that I'm wrong, but it just, the look of them, just, I'm like, I don't even understand how somebody can get around in that outfit. Paul Noxie says, yeah, the Ultramarines movie had John Hurt and Sean Pertwee. Yeah, it was, like, the voice acting was great. Great's maybe a strong term. The voice acting was pedigreed. There was definitely some names in there, and it was not bad, but everything else about it was bad. Isn't what's special about Ultramarines is that they aren't special? That wasn't so much the issue with the movie. The movie was just poorly animated, and the story didn't make a ton of sense. It was a situation of, like, the whole concept behind 40K is that you have these big armies and they get into fights. With the Ultramarines movie, they were like, we can't animate an entire army. Just not going to happen. So they basically took like a little small squad and then put them in the fog, cut off from everybody else, so animation was a lot easier. So they're like, oh gosh, we don't know what's happened. We got separated from our group and there's only 4 of us or whatever. And then they fought against, I don't know, 2.5 orcs or whatever happened. I don't even remember anymore. I've wiped most of it from my memory. But I do remember going, oh, that's why they did this. It's because it was way easier to animate 3 or 4 guys literally in the fog than to try to do anything else. I mean, there's some cool scenes from the inside of like battle barges and all that kind of jazz and whatever. Cool-ish. Honestly, when they were working their way up to that movie, the screenshots that they were releasing were way better than the movie itself. Just, they worked better as stills. As soon as they started to animate stuff, you'd be like, no. But as stills, they weren't bad. So, Astartes Marines looked so much better because he totally redesigned the armor so it was correctly proportioned at full scale. Yeah, I kind of got that feeling too. They do look a little different than what you would expect, and I think that does make sense. Let's see here. I've been in build mode during the stream. 2,000 point pancake army complete. I don't know what a pancake army is. Do I know what a pancake army is? I've never heard of the pancake army. I kind of like pancakes. Haven't had pancakes in a long time, though. Ultramarines could have used less Marines and more fog. I don't know that they could have had less Marines. I think they would have had no Marines then. The Animaster says, that bad, huh? Yeah, not good. Not good at all. John Ashley Smith says, I watched Ultramarines. I'll never get that time back. Yeah, no. T. Dunford says, hopefully the new Eisenhorn TV show redeems that sad movie. Yeah, I would definitely hope that that's the case. I'm a big fan of the Eisenhorn books, so I hope that the TV show is good. We'll see. I mean, you can have a big budget and even sometimes have good story. Well, let me back that up. You can have a big budget and good production and great graphics and all that stuff, but if the story's like janky, it doesn't help. Yeah, my wife and I have watched a couple of we've started to watch a couple of TV series and been like, this is terrible. What the heck did we watch recently? Electric Dreams. It's Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. It's like an anthology series on, I want to say, Amazon. It was terrible. Like, there was like maybe one episode that was like not terrible, but most of them were terrible. And so, but they had money, Amazon money, probably. So, yeah. Story is key, I think, in all of these situations. So hopefully they do some good stuff there. I mean, like, look at Mandalorian. I mean, that's if you've watched Mandalorian, it's pretty spectacular. And not just because it looks good, but also because the story is, I think, very, very well done. So, how do we start creating content for 9th edition 40K, and what's the best way to stand out from the crowd? If you're talking about as a content creator, that's a good question. I think that creating new content for 9th edition, it's honestly, like, we don't have a lot of information at this point. Like, currently we have, where's my button? I push this button and do that. Like, we've got this and we've got that website and the Twitch stream, and that's about it. I mean, there's been some stuff that's come out on Warhammer Community and things like that. they talked about the new logo. I've not seen too many people who seem to like the new logo. Anyway, but yeah, so there's not a ton of information right now. I mean, if there's a lot of speculation. I'm speculating by a lot of this right now, and so it's just kind of the way it works. Nope, that's the button I wanted. So, yeah, it's I don't know. It's very difficult, I think, to some degree these days to separate yourself from the crowd. One thing is, I think, just to watch a lot of other channels and then figure out what your interest area is, and then kind of move into that situation. Try to make content aiming towards what you like that maybe isn't being covered currently. That's one of the best ways, I think, to go. Eisenhorn is produced by Netflix, right? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think the Inquisition could lend to the Man in the High Tower vibe. Potentially. Man, I wish that show would have ended better. It did not. Spoiler alert, it didn't. I just didn't like the ending at all. But, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. And again, talking about a show that had, like, really good production value and all that kind of stuff. But, Hey, Malev, how you doing? I did it, chat. I finished all the Relic Blade Kickstarter models. Now I gotta take a nap. Then take a bunch of photos. Don't take a bunch of photos while you're napping. That'll be weird. Glad to hear it there, Malev. Adam, sometimes even if the story isn't janky, you can have wooden actors who can't act completely ruin a good show. That's also very true. The acting and the story, I find, are generally far more important than the production value. Although it's a nice cherry on top, certainly, if you've got that going on. Design Minion says that Abnett wrote it, talking, I think, about Ultramarines. But the budget and the removed major portions of the plot, leaving it with 4 Marines walking through a desert. Yeah, that's difficult. Let's see here. If I want to play Kill Team competitive, then should I play arena mode or standard? Get down, girl. Or standard core model mode is still... I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not a competitive player, so I don't know that I would be able to answer that. Your main deal is, once tournaments start up again, is to start looking at what the tournament organizers put out there. Some tournament organizers are sticking with straight core. Some tournament organizers are like, we're using core and some of the elite rules. Some of them are using full elite rules. I don't know that I've ever seen a tournament that uses commanders, but maybe. Certainly I've seen arena at conventions being used in some of those situations too, but it totally depends on the tournament organizer. What they set up is law for that tournament, obviously. So, and they kind of, a lot of them do different things. Even GW, which was setting up tournaments for Adepticon, like, had their own specific rules that were different from the core rules. Like, even Games Workshop wasn't using the scouting phase for the tournaments. They were just like, no, we're not going to use that. And I'm like, well, I don't know anybody who likes the scouting phase, so yeah, it totally makes sense. Margot is back. Let's see where we at. The Batman says, I really like the new 40K logo. Okay, well, you're the person. Okay, good to hear. I don't know. I have an issue with the kerning because I'm a design nerd. Let me hang on. Probably a lot of you don't know what that means, which is fine. It's not for everybody. Kerning is scrolling. It's the space in between the letters, and I feel like the W and the A are not the proper closeness together, and frankly it's a bit of a subjective thing. When I do my videos and I make the thumbnails thusly, I always go through after I've typed, like up at the top here it says the new 40K 9th edition. I go through that and I fix, because like the computer is always like, oh yeah, this is how far apart these things should be, but it's not the case. I'm just gonna put her on the ground again, girly. Anyway, so yeah, there's something just sort of squirrely about in my opinion, about this logo as far as the spacing between the letters. The line through it reminds me a lot of Blade Runner, which I like Blade Runner, but this game is not Blade Runner. That kind of stuff. Anyway, so there's just a lot of kind of... It's not quite for me. I don't know what her issue is. She is driving me nuts. Why do you want to be on the table? Get down. Go. I'm going to go lock you in the bathroom. She's just leaping on the table for no reason. Stay down. Anyway. Can't wait to move into the basement. Now I'm messing up all my stuff. Okay, so where's the chat window? Stay down here. All right. Some people are saying the new logo is growing on me. Well, they're not saying that it's growing on me. That would be weird. I don't know what to do with you, girl. You don't even step on that. We're just playing a game now where we just keep getting up on the table and getting down, getting up on the table and getting down. Stay away. No. All right. Centering the A would be maybe the right direction. It's hard to say. But yeah, new logo is fine. All right. Sorry, getting all flustered here. All my stuff's all set up funny now. I can't see the window. That window's not the window that I want. That's the window that I want. All right. That's that. Now I can see the chat again. All right. The concept is okay. The execution is off. I just think that the earlier logos always had like a nicer sort of three-dimensionality to them, which I think makes them more, for lack of a better word, luxe. Like it looks like something that took more design time versus something that looks less like it took less design time. It's not important. Mikey says she's after attention. She is. She definitely is. There's nothing like food-wise up here for her or anything like that, even though she's not crazy food-oriented. But she gets into situations where she decides, well, cats do this. We had a cat years ago, and she would get like a one-track mind, like she wanted to do this thing that she wasn't supposed to do, and you could do almost literally nothing to stop her. Ugh. So anyway, let's see. She sees all the attention that she might get after she's on the table, and she won't get after she's not on the table. That's true. I don't know where she went. I wish she would. Maybe it's because her sister is laying in the basket, and she wants to lay in the basket. I guess that could be lots of things. Put socks on her feet. No, that's not going to work out. I'm not going to do that. The new logo looked like it was designed to appeal to younger audiences. It may be definitely designed to appeal to slightly broader audiences, potentially. You know what I mean? Like you get that situation where it's a little bit more, well, broad, I guess. It's designed to maybe look more like a science fiction game, whereas in the past, the Warhammer logos have frequently looked, even though they're kind of science fiction-y, they also still look a bit like gothic science fiction. There have been a lot of talk about people who are like, oh, are they going to take the grimdark out of 40K? It seems unlikely. Everything is still going to be covered in skulls. I mean, that's just going to be sort of standard. But it's hard to say. I mean, it could be just like, it's almost got slightly, just edging on a little bit of the side of like a vaporwave kind of feel. You know, that line through there, it's kind of like a 80s kind of Blade Runner sort of thing. Maybe that's just some of the design sensibility. I mean, it's not all neon orange and pink and blue and whatnot, obviously, but it is definitely, although there is blue, it's way more blue than many of the other logos. So I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. Let's see here. How do you think they will go about doing the new codex books, and what would you like to see? I mean, they're going to probably stick to the standard, you know, they're just going to update with new models. They're going to update with tweaked points. I don't think that they're going to go and break the system too much as far as that's concerned. I don't think, personally, I don't think that, I mean, Codexes are still going to have fluff in them. They're still going to have painted models and things like that for you to look at and get ideas from. Probably also some painting guides a little bit. They're going to talk about, like, if it's a group that has different types, like you've got different chapters of Space Marines. You got different, what the heck are they called in the AdMech? I can't remember what they're called. Like every group, there's different septs of the Tau and stuff like that. So they're going to go through and say, well, this is the color scheme for this sept, and this is the one, and all that kind of stuff. So that stuff's all going to still be in there. The data sheets are obviously still going to all be in there. It would be interesting if they would start adding a little bit more in the way of... they may start adding some new interesting crusade stuff into each book that has to do specifically with that army, that codex, whatever. So that might be something that we might just start to see in the new versions of the codexes. Generally, so far, though, I mean, codexes are codexes. They change the layout a little bit here and there, but the stuff that's in, the most recent Space Marine Codex is not tons different than what's in the Space Marine Codex that I first bought back in 5th edition or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously, like I said, it looks different, the layout's different, but it's basically the same kind of type of content for the most part. Rocker Boy says it's a cyberpunkish logo. Yeah, a little bit. I could see that. Let's see here. Hello from Malaysia. Well, hello. Logo looks like someone have been playing too much World of Warships. The video game. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. People are always resistant to change, whether good or bad. That's true. And as I've been getting older, I've been trying to... like, realize that. When, something changes and I immediately am like, oh, I don't like that. I'm like, well, do I not like it because I don't like it? Or do I not like it because it's changed and, that kind of stuff? I've been trying to... It's weird because generally as you get older, you become more resistant to change in general. I've been trying to become less resistant and to be more interested in change. So, the logo's not going to keep me from playing the game. Literally the logo is just, conversation about the way it looks and just be like, oh, that's interesting. They did it that way. I wonder why. Like, nah, it's not really my thing or whatever. And that's fine. Other people like it, however it works out. That's cool. It's, I don't know. I think that it'll be, I'm much more interested, honestly, to know what I'm much more interested to know what the game system changes are, other than the ones that they've already mentioned in the FAQ, where they're like, oh, now vehicles work this way, and you can still shoot when you're in hand-to-hand combat, which obviously makes a lot of sense. The whole concept that you could get into hand-to-hand combat with a tank, when they started 8th edition, I understand the game is abstract. We're playing a tabletop game version of war. But that seemed weird, even to me, as a person who's not necessarily great at rules and competitive play. I was just like, huh. And so they're fixing that. The flyer thing they're fixing. That makes sense. It'll be interesting to see what other things they're fixing as they go down the road. I'm looking forward to them fixing... like I said, I really hope they do something about the activation. I would like to see something... Honestly, I'd like to see something pretty extreme change in the activation. I have a suspicion they won't, because I think that they would get a ton of pushback. Kind of like they did with Age of Sigmar, like I mentioned earlier. Moderator Matt says, if you guys don't want to talk about fonts, you got the wrong channel. Oh, yeah, I'm a font nerd. Anyone know why I can't buy anything from Forge World? I suspect probably that they're still kind of on lockdown. So yeah, you've just recently been able to buy stuff from the GW web store within the last 2 weeks, I think. So probably Forge World's currently still shut down, potentially due to the pandemic. Let's see here. People talking about, I used to hate the current Magic the Gathering design for the longest time, but then I realized that it did indeed make things easier to read, and now when I look back on the old design, I cringe. Yeah, again, that's the thing. You hate change, and you're like, but then later on, after you got used to it, you look back and go, oh no, that actually was a good idea. That happens. How do you feel about the new leaked starter set? I saw some of the pictures. I mean, it's fine. I don't know. I mean, Space Marines versus Necrons. Necrons have needed some love for a while, specifically warriors. I don't know if I like the fact that they're making the warriors look beat up and almost like... I mean, obviously they're not decaying because they're made out of metal or whatever, but... Although they're super crazy old, so I guess metal can decay over time. But they're trying to make them almost look a little zombie-ish or a little bit more undead in the new designs. They needed new designs. Those warriors were old sculpts. That being said, I'm not 100% sure I like that look as much. And again, going back to, it's change, and that's the... But I don't even know that it's change. I would have liked to have... I don't know. It's just weird to me that these robots all of a sudden started looking decayed. And that's sort of a strange direction to move into. But it's, I don't know. Maybe when I see them in person. Like some of the other really huge, crazy, big stuff, like the big three-legged one and all that. Like that stuff, I'm like, that's really cool. I won't buy an army of them, but it's cool. But again, I'm not going to buy really an army of anything, it doesn't sound like. At least not a full-size army. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting. The new motorcycles, I've seen a bunch of... Somebody took some time to do some really good work, honestly, to make the Primaris motorcycle. It was like that scene... It's like that T-shirt design you've seen for Akira, where he's like it's shot from behind and he's like walking kind of towards the motorcycle, but it's from above, and then you see the motorcycle at the top. And somebody basically made like a Primaris in red, like walking towards the Primaris motorcycle. Because the Primaris motorcycle, other than the fact that it's like really super crazy wide, it does, because it's slung so low, it does remind me of that motorcycle from Akira. So someone did really good work actually doing that illustration or whatever. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that starter box goes. Rob says we really need new sculpts for Imperial Guard. Yeah, I totally agree. I would love to see some new... In 9th edition, I'd love to see them come out with new Cadians. Well, I mean, because really, not really any Cadia anymore, so I would hope that they would do something along those lines. Yeah. So definitely I'd like to see some new sculpts, because I was just looking actually at some of the sprues last night, because I've been kitbashing some stuff in the basement, and yeah, I was looking at these old sprues and I was like, wow, these do need some work. To the point where like even like one of the sprues I had had just flash around everything. Like it was like that mold is old. So Adron says, I would say most of the beat up look to the new warriors is in the paint scheme. There are actually a few modeled parts that they seem more accent pieces, like a loose eye. Yeah, I mean, there's like the armor on them has got like a lot of like actual physical bumps. Like, yeah, they painted them kind of like rusty, kind of like a sepia color almost to some degree, like on the main parts, whereas the joints were a different color, I think. But the yeah, there's like the loose eye, and then there's just like kind of like cuts almost and chunks taken out of the normal armor. And that to me, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Anthony says, and with that animation, female sculpts maybe as in relation to the guard. The one guard who sees her friends killed at the beginning is female. I think a couple of them actually in the beginning are female. Yeah, I would definitely like to see that happen as well. I mean, it's been in the lore for so long, female guard. I mean, it's been in the video games, it's been in the books. I mean, it's been, yeah, they definitely need to do that. I just don't want them to go overboard with it, I guess, frankly. But meaning like they shouldn't be like, you know, obviously, and they wouldn't do this because they've not been doing it with the Sisters of Battle. But like, you don't need like bikini guards women, you know, that kind of thing. Like that they should look basically like kind of roughly, kind of like the male guard, but just slightly different heads, maybe a little bit of a different leg proportion thing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that'll be hopefully the case. Brian says, I think there will be women in the new guard boxes. I hope so. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Guard is really hard to copyright due to just being Starship Troopers, so until they come up with an idea that they can't easily be copied, they won't invest. I mean, they did with Tempestus Scions, but they're obviously very different looking than regular guard. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully they do, though, because I think it would be a problem. They need new Catachans before the new Cadians. Their faces are so derpy. Yeah, the Catachan models are also... I would love to see them release some Catachans and some Cadians, or whatever the new Cadians look might be, if there is one. I would like to see them hopefully do that in 9th. We'll see. Yeah. What do you think about the new McFarlane toys? I didn't really know anything about it until they just started talking about it. I don't know if this Bandai thing was supposed to be if this was just like a test run, and then they decided to do the McFarlane thing, or what's going on. I don't know. There must have been some sort of behind the scenes kind of thing. I think it's interesting. Like, they're down in the basement, but I own... Years ago, there was a company that was making these little, like, maquettes, I think is the term for it, but they're basically little statues, and there was like a Dark Angels one, and a Ultramarines one, and a bunch of stuff like that, and they were pre-painted, just like little statues, little figurines you put on your desk or whatever. And I own 2 or 3 of those. So those little extra things, like, people like that stuff, and so it makes sense to do that. And if you can work with a company like McFarlane Toys has been doing it for a long time, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see what types. I mean, they did Funko Pops relatively recently. You're starting to see it spread out more into like the normal, for lack of a better term, zeitgeist, which I think is cool. It helps, I think, spread the hobby. So that's also good. Jason says, I thought they said it was because the standard Necron warriors aren't given the best reanimation protocols, so that they do get more beat up the more they get, or maybe someone just said that. I think that they were kidding, like the guys in the Twitch chat, or not the chat, but the people, either Adam or Eddie or Pete or one of those guys. I wondered if they were kidding, but I don't know. It's a possibility. That might be the reasoning behind it, or they just wanted to change them and make them look a little bit more undead. Because, I mean, honestly, Necrons have always been space undead, or space skeletons. I mean, that's kind of the whole point. Yeah, so Christopher Jackson says, looking at the Space Wolf maquette right now. See, yeah. I don't know if I had a Space Wolf one. I've had them packed in a box, and I keep meaning to put them someplace. I've thought about taking them to the studio, but there's not really a place where you can see them in the studio, particularly. And I currently have knickknacks at the studio as it is. I may put them in the basement, or once I get my desk set up and stuff like that, I might put them on my desk. So, yeah. Uncle Adam, what's your favorite sci-fi movie? Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm a Blade Runner fan. I'm a... I've got other ones, obviously. I like Starship Troopers. I do enjoy that movie. Where's my phone? I have a list somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of different movies that I like, but... And I'm not just sci-fi, but I do have a tendency to be kind of sci-fi. RoboCop. That's sci-fi-ish. I mean, even though technically now, like, when RoboCop was supposed to be happening is now in the past. But yeah. So, Blade Runner, Mad Max, RoboCop, Star Wars, Aliens. Yeah. There's some other movies in there as well that are not sci-fi, but that's on my list of there. Moderator Matt says the Beaky Space Marines were all girls. Oh, that's a hot take. Aliens is the correct answer, says Anion. Loved all those movies, watched all of them. I even liked, is Mad Max sci-fi? Well, it's the future, I guess. I don't know. It's not really sci-fi. Aliens, I've watched all the Aliens movies, even the Aliens versus Predator movies. Wait. Yeah, I think there were only 2 of those, right? I've seen both of them, yes. Fifth Element's good. Yep, I do enjoy that one. Fifth Element is one of those movies, like if you're like just kind of bored on a weekend and you're sitting around or doing something or whatever and you flip on the TV, there are certain movies that are on, you're just like, oh, well, now I'm watching this till the end. Even though it's on TV and there's going to be commercials and it's, whatever. They bleep stuff or whatever, how do they do that? Shawshank Redemption, it's another one where if you're just like flipping through channels and there's Shawshank, you're like, oh, I'm stuck here for the next hour until this is ended because it's just such a great movie. Fifth Element's kind of the same way, at least I've found. Might not be for everybody. Kyle Turner says, did you notice that the Guard and Tempestus Scions are separated in the Psychic Awakening book like different types of elves? I wonder if in 9th edition there'll be separate factions that you have to pay to soup. I mean, maybe, I suppose. I haven't looked at that particular Psychic Awakening book. To be fair, I haven't really looked real hard at any of them. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense, I guess, that they might, well, I don't know. Because they're adding so many more potential command points, that was one of the things that they talked about is that, right now you have the certain number of command points that you can sort of like squeeze out of different battalion setups and this and that and the other thing. And certain, rules for different armies and all that jazz. And now they're like, okay, well, we're going to make it so everybody gets a lot more command points because that's fun. Okay, cool. Then the ability to be able to mix Normal Guard and Tempestus Scions together, I guess, might then remove some of those command points from the pool, I guess. If that's how you're paying for soup. People who don't know what we're talking about are like, what are you talking about paying for soup? What are you talking about? It's a thing. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Let's see here. Prefer Aliens over Alien. Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I like Alien. I like both of those movies a lot. They are very different movies. Very different. Definitely. Emily says that Shawshank was a fantastic movie that I will never watch again. Oh, I like it a lot. Let me see here. Dirty Dozen is great for inspiring game narrative. Yeah, I could see that, definitely. There's plenty of movies out there that are good for inspiring like narrative type campaigns or even just doing scenarios in certain situations. Like there's things that happen in movies that you could then duplicate in scenarios in games, tabletop wargaming and stuff like that. Beacon Marine ate all my soup. Wow, that's a bummer. I don't know if you talked about it already, but how do you think that melee will change? I know they talked a little bit about it. I know they're trying to push a little bit more into melee because the game is very shoot heavy. But yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, in reality, because this game is wicked based out of reality. Once things get into the hand-to-hand combat phase, it should be incredibly deadly. Like, stuff should die quickly. Like, it is, if you look at modern military, just as an example, generally, things have gone really south if you are now in hand-to-hand combat. Like, it is bad. Like, your plan has crumbled. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the idea is we should shoot those guys until they leave or die. Probably leave. That's really the point of general, like, just suppressing fire, all that kind of stuff. You're like, just let's shoot those guys until they're gone or dead. Preferably gone, maybe dead, whatever, I don't know. But if we get into a point where we have to start throwing hands or knives or shovels or whatever, it's everything, all the plans have broken down. So, and the way that 40K seems to look to me these days is a lot of times you get into combat and then that slows the game way down. Like, it is just like a clump. And then it's just like, well, there you go. I mean, it makes more sense in Age of Sigmar because you shouldn't have nearly as many. I mean, obviously you got bows and arrows and crossbows and whatever, all that kind of jazz. But for the most part, it should be all about getting into, like, you watch Game of Thrones or any of those movies, they shoot arrows at each other for a while, and then everyone just goes like that, and there's just a big clump of people, and they're all, covered in blood and dirt and all that jazz. Totally makes sense. Modern military or sci-fi military, when you get into hand-to-hand combat, it should be over a lot quicker. They need to speed up the combat, in my opinion. Now, that being said, then the game just becomes a lot more about standing and shooting, which is maybe slightly less interesting for people, and I understand that as well. That's one of the reasons why I'm liking Warcry more now these days, is because it's doing two things. It is getting into the hand-to-hand combat, but it's also making it happen really quickly. So you're not, like if it was a game that was as slow as the hand-to-hand combat in 40K, it would not be a fun game, Warcry. But because it's getting into that, and it's not just a line of guys. Like, that's the thing. You have such an advantage. Well, advantage is maybe a strong word. You have such a benefit in many different scenarios for Kill Team to just stand, not move, and shoot, because you get to shoot first if you don't move, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's game design is stupid hard. It's really difficult. But I would like to see the combat stuff in 40K sped up and more deadly. I can't tell you how many times, not even just in not just in 40K, but not just in 8th edition, but even in the previous editions, where you would just get this lump that they would just sit there and just slap at each other for 3 turns and not do much damage, and you're just like, ugh, that should go faster. Melee is ridiculous that you still can't land hits. Yeah, that is an issue. I agree. Michael Strange says the Blade Runner 2049 gets better and better with each viewing. No, I agree. It's very good. We gamers embrace change as long as everything stays the same. This is true. You're not wrong. I don't know if they're leaning into melee by allowing tanks and monsters to shoot into melee now. Not shoot into melee, but shoot from melee, I guess, technically, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Adam, I appreciate all the content and conversation we need to get away these days. You're a godsend. Well, I don't know that that's the case, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Moon with Sam Rockwell was great. Oh, yeah, no, I like that. I own that movie. 98% sure we own that movie. Let's see here. Just don't get your infiltrators in combat with nasty pointy ear floaty bikes. Yeah, well, yeah. Nasty pointy ear floaty bikes, I think is probably the way I should have pronounced that. Any word if the old Space Marine boxes are phased out? No one has said that. They have mentioned that the old Space Marines and whatnot are still going to be in 9th edition. I doubt very highly they will make new Tactical Marine kits. Like in 8th edition, they finally made new Chaos Marine kits. Thank goodness. Now, they're not Primaris Chaos Space Marines. I don't know if there are any Primaris Chaos Space Marines. I mean, there probably will be eventually. Like at some point, some Primaris somewhere is going to get the Taint of Chaos or whatever, and then flip sides and take his friends with him or whatever. That's fine. But right now, that there's the Chaos Chaos doesn't have Primaris Marines per se. That being said, the new Chaos sculpts are much like the new Death Guard sculpts. They are larger, so that the scale has gotten a little bit bigger. But they're still regular Chaos, 1 wound, all that jazz. I'm 98% sure on that. Honestly, the Chaos stuff, I haven't looked at the new Chaos stuff that happened in Psychic Awakening, so I don't know if they tweaked the wounds, but I suspect that there's still 1 wound, which is a bit of a bummer if you're a Chaos player and you're going up against a lot of Primaris, but what are you going to do? So, so it'll be interesting. The Noob Painter says that 9th Ed seems to be shifting to Tank Hammer. I do also feel that as well. I think the fact that they're changing rules as they relate to tanks means we're going to see a lot more tanks, which is interesting because in 8th edition, tanks went away. Like, you just didn't see... People were running around with lots of troops, and now... And if you've been playing for a long time, you do see this happen from edition to edition to edition as they kind of flip it. Like, in 5th edition, everything was in metal boxes. You did not cross the ground if you weren't in a vehicle, because you would die. It was just terrible. And then eventually, all of a sudden, it's like, don't ever get in a vehicle. You'll get blown up and killed. And then that was a thing. And then everybody bought more troops and less tanks. And then it just kind of flip-flops back and forth. And we're in the now more tank-heavy, I think, version with 9th, is what I'm seeing. Ryan says, Adam, do you play Star Wars Legion, and would that activation system work for 40K? I think so. I mean, yes, okay. First answer, yes, I do play Legion. Not, I think I played Legion. I do know that. I do think that some kind of activation system like that would be interesting. The bidding mechanic may be a tough pill to swallow for some players, but I think that it would be kind of cool. Honestly, like I've been saying, nearly any kind of change to the activation system in 40K would be welcome, on my opinion. Yeah, definitely. Stefan asks, a little bit of a subject, a little off subject. Do you play different games than GW? Oh yeah, like I just mentioned, I play Star Wars Legion, and I'm also been getting more and more into kind of weird, weird is a strong word, indie games. They're not necessarily weird. I mean, some of them I guess are weird. Anyway, indie games I've been a big fan of for quite some time. Games like, right now, I've been working on games for Planet 28, which is a great little inexpensive, if not free, PDF indie game that you can get online. It's like a 16-page rule book. It's a lot of fun. Star Breach, also another one. Zone Raiders is another one. But yeah, those are like newish ones that have come out recently that I've gotten into. But I do like the concept of like indie games. And then because none of those games have a model line, then you end up kitbashing cool stuff to make them work with those games. And I have been really enjoying kitbashing lately. I was doing some of it again, like I said, last night. So yeah. Swapping from tank/vehicle to troop meta between editions helps to sell more models. It's true. I mean, they are a business. That's the way it works. Not coincidental that GW is going to take charge to writing Forge World rules. Expect those units to be more viable in army lists. It's potential. It's a potential. I mean, it's still... Forge World stuff's real premium. And it also depends on whether tournament organizers allow Forge World stuff. Some do, some don't. So if you're hosting a big tournament and you're like, we're not getting into any of that Forge World shenanigans in our tournament, well, then, you know, the people who come to play aren't going to bring it. And so that's going to sell less of it. So it kind of depends almost a little bit on the tournament organizer meta, you know, like what the tournament organizers kind of all get together and sort of do, you know. Yeah. Do you think Kill Team and 40K should be merged, as in put into one of the smaller rule sets? Kind of worried about the lack of Kill Team support this past year. I don't think they should be merged. No, they're very different rule sets. I like the fact that I can play Kill Team with just the Kill Team core book, and I don't need to go buy a codex for every one of the different armies that I want to try. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you're like, look, if you want to play Kill Team, you want to play Grey Knights and buy and build and paint 5 models to make your Kill Team, but you have to buy the Grey Knights Codex to be able to use them, people would be like, yeah, I'm not really going to do that. I mean, look at back in 7th edition, 6th edition, 5th edition. Kill Team's been around for a long time, but it was always just this little kind of thin little add-on book that was like, yeah, use the stuff you already got. Now you can play in these kind of small, weird things. When 8th came along, then they were like, about a year later, they're like, look, let's make a new game that kind of uses the rules, but is completely self-contained. All of the army lists are in this one book. You don't have to use a codex. It's not an add-on. It's a starter kind of, you know, entrance vector into the hobby, and it's worked relatively well for them. That being said, you're right. They have focused less on it this year, or, well, 2019 at least, like the later part. But I think it's also because... From what I understand, they have 3 main studios for rules design. And I don't know if this has changed, but it used to be they had one group that did rules design, which is why everything took a long time. You'd have like years and years and years and years between, say, like Space Hulk editions, and then you'd have like, you'd be lucky if you got 3 40K codexes in a year. Because that same group not only was writing the 40K codexes, but they also had to write the Warhammer Fantasy army books, and you know, they can only do so much stuff. Now, from what I've been told, they have 3 different design groups for the rules. They've got one that works on 40K, they've got one that works on Age of Sigmar, and then they've got what's, I think, known as the specialist games people, which is your Blood Bowls, your Kill Team probably, I think, is being... I don't know if Kill Team's being under 40K or if it's being under specialist. And then same with like Warcry, you know. So they've got more stuff they can spread around resource-wise to be able to crank out stuff more quickly. So yeah, we'll see. Matthew Sears asks, "What is a Zoat?" It's like a big monster. They they announced it at Las Vegas Open. They announced in the press thing that they do that they were going to be making a model for Zoats. It's like it's I think it's from Necromunda, or it's at least from 40K. I don't think it's an Age of Sigmar thing. I honestly, when they said, "Oh, and we're going to be making Zoats," and the audience gasped, I was like, what's a Zoat? I didn't ask the question, but I thought it real hard, and I don't remember anything about Zoats. Like, I remember hearing about the dreaded Ambull, like back before they had the model for it and all that stuff, like years ago. I don't remember hearing about Zoats, so I just somehow missed, you know, Zoat literature. I'm not a Zoat apologist. I didn't know anything about him. But a lot of people are excited about they're going to be releasing a model for it. So yeah, that's where that is. Cyclone says it's a goat, but with a Z instead of a G. Taller, I think, than a goat, but yeah. It's a... John Ashley Smith says it is a quadruped Xenos from the days of Rogue Trader. That makes a lot more sense. Let's see here. Lord of the Rings is still being developed as a specialist game. Yes, that's part of definitely the specialist division. Let's see here. With the new CEO and the new direction the company is taking, and by new we mean like 6 years ago at this point. It's been going for a while. Do you expect GW and all their games to really blow up? Could you see the tabletop becoming more mainstream as a result? Well, I would say that their games have blown up already. Age of Sigmar is selling better than Fantasy kind of almost ever did. 8th edition 40K sold crazy well. Surprised Games Workshop how well it sold from the people I've talked to at Games Workshop. And then of course Kill Team did quite well. Warcry is doing quite well. So yeah, it turned out pretty good as it is to get this new CEO and get rid of the old one. And tabletop gaming is becoming more mainstream. And I'm not even talking about tabletop wargaming. I mean, if you look at like board games and all that kind of stuff, RPGs, you know, I mean, those Critical Role folks had a Kickstarter last year that raised $12 million. Like, the Forbes.com wrote an article about it. They're like, what is this? You know, I mean, so yeah, tabletop gaming is becoming a bit more mainstream in general. Our genre, which is of the 4 genres of tabletop gaming, you got board gaming, role-playing games, collectible card games, Magic and whatnot, and then you've got us, which is the tabletop wargaming miniatures. We are the smallest of those 4 genres. We are way smaller than role-playing games, way smaller than board games, smaller than Magic and all that stuff. Just go to like a big convention like Gen Con, which is all tabletop gaming, and look at all the booths and count how many of them are for miniatures, and it's a very small number. But that's the kind of way it sort of works. So, yeah, but things are becoming more mainstream, and things are going better, obviously way better for GW than they were, say, in the early 2000s. But, or even into the late 2000s. But yeah, it's, I think it's going, so that's good. Evidently that the Zoats were a slave race to the Tyranids and were not actually goats with a Z. Okay, silly question. Ignore if 2 out there. With all the videos you do, have you done singing? Singing. I was like, signing? Okay, singing. Have you, seems like you have a good voice. I was in chorus when I was in middle school, but I think my voice hadn't changed yet. Anyway, I was in a band in the 2000s and even into the early 2010s, but it was a punk band, which is not exactly singing. It's more using your voice as a percussion instrument to some degree. I don't know if I'd be a good singer or not. I don't feel particularly musical, unfortunately. Although I do own a tiny little guitar now, not a ukulele, but it's actually a cigar box that has been turned into a guitar, and I am slowly learning how to plink away at it and annoy the cats. As it turns out, they don't like it. I don't know why. Did you ever play Mordheim, Uncle Adam? Like a really long time ago, back in the day when Games Workshop or Gen Con was still in Milwaukee before it moved to Indianapolis. So this is in the 90s. I would never play there, but I would watch. Like you would be there for 4 days, and it's you can only go through the dealer hall so many times, and so I would hang out in this room that like half of the room was Necromunda, like old school Necromunda, and the other half was Mordheim, and I would just watch because I didn't have any models or anything like that. I was a younger kid or whatever. I mean, I was in college, but and I would just watch people play, and so it was like battle reports because there was no YouTube. But yeah, so I never played Mordheim, but I watched a lot of it, and like it was like an interactive battle report because you could sometimes, even if you like could ask questions or like somebody else would ask a question or whatever. And I didn't want to get in there and like bug people and be like, hey, what does this guy do? Because they're trying to play a game, but sometimes there would be some communication back and forth. Depending on, these were not tournaments. These were more like convention games. Convention games frequently are like, when you play a normal game of a game, it's usually you against another person. When you go to a convention, it's usually like, well, let's see if we can get 6 people into this game or something weird. You do something that you try to do like once a year, and you set up like a huge table or you do all kinds of stuff like that. And so, yeah, but I never played I never played Mordheim. I didn't have the models. So we were actually, me and Sam's brother and another guy were going to play Mordheim probably back about 4 or 5 years ago. And we like downloaded the PDFs of the rules because the only place you could find the rules was just these weird PDFs online, and started going through. And like one of the issues with Mordheim is that some of the armies are very unbalanced. So like, okay, we're going to sit down and play Mordheim. Okay, well, nobody can play this army because they're way over, they're way overpowerful. And if you're going to play with this army, you can't play with this particular unit because they're broken, and it was like a lot of negotiation and all that stuff. And we never actually went anywhere with it, but we kicked around the idea. But I did used to watch a lot of it. Let's see here. Daniel says that Warcry is kind of like the new Mordheim. In scale, yes, sort of. Not so much, I think, in theme, obviously, but in scale, yeah, sort of. VJ Morph says, does anyone know of Mac the Maker? I do. Was hoping he might do a 3D printing Q&A for TMX 2020. I think he might have had a death in the family, VJ. I think, because he and I are friends on Facebook. So there's that. Just FYI. So yeah, I don't know if he's been online much. People asking about Gargants. A Gargant, yeah, that's just a different name for a giant. Probably because Games Workshop wanted to. I don't know if they can they copyright Gargant? I don't know if they can or not. Do you think there'll be new Kill Team edition after 9th edition with rules changes from it? If so, its rules lag a concern between Kill Team and 40K. I don't know that they're much related because they play so very differently in a lot of different ways. Like I said in the video I did on Friday, there are definite similarities. You got your ballistic skill, your weapon skill, your strength, your toughness, your wounds, your leadership, all that jazz. Very, very much the same data sheet wise as far as the categories are concerned. Numbers, not necessarily, but yeah. But the activation and turn sequence in general, very different than, at least pretty different than 40K 8th edition currently. So, and the way that you're activating model by model as opposed to moving them in squads, all that kind of different stuff. So, I don't know. Like, I kind of talked a little bit earlier in the part of the show where I said, maybe you'll have a little bit of that where you will, if they come up with a new book, the thing is that it'll just be the book. So you don't have to worry about getting new codexes and all that stuff because all the army lists and all that stuff are in the core book. So if they do decide sometime in 2021, potentially, to come out with a new core book for Kill Team, there'd have to be a really good reason for it. honestly. Like, they would have to really tweak some rules, because otherwise you'd be like, what? If you, like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it would seem, I honestly think it would almost seem a little too early, but I don't know what their business plan is. Because, you know, Kill Team came out in 2018, so if they come out with a new book this year or next year, I don't know. It's a possibility. I don't know what they would have to do to change it. I really, again, I don't want them to bring vehicles into it, and I don't think there would be a reason to do so, since they're going to be making small point games in 9th edition more viable, allegedly. That's what they're saying, so we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, it is 11 a.m. in my neck of the woods, and so I want to thank everyone for coming to the live show today. This has been fun. I'm going to go find Margot and give her some cuddles, because she obviously needed some attention, but she kept jumping up on the table. So I'll do that, and I hope that you guys are staying safe and have a good fortnight until the next episode, and you know, keep doing your hobby stuff, and keep having a good time. Again, if you're interested, you can follow me on Twitch. I'm starting to do more of that, and I'm going to start doing actual hobby streams on Friday mornings soonish. But right now, I'm sometimes, after getting done painting for a while, and I get a bit of an eye strain headache, then I go do Uncle Adam's paint break, and I play GTA 5 and run into people with my car and then apologize because I didn't mean to. But yeah, just twitch.tv/tabletop minions where you can find that. So hopefully we'll see you folks again soon. And like I said, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.